Sure you
Hey
can.
everybody, how are you doing? This is Bryan Kramer. I'm so excited to be here with a special guest today. But before we get started, I wanted to welcome you to another H2H Chat. I'm really excited about the topic. It's how to build your personal brand like a rock star. And there's no better person for that than John Hall. John Hall is a great friend of mine. He has done some awesome things in his career. To do exactly what it is he's talking about. He's built a phenomenal company that is, John, you're like 90 or 100 employees or more than that?
We're around there. Yeah, we're about 60 or 70 full-time, and then around that on payroll. So. Bam.
So he's the CEO of Influence & Company, an entrepreneur, a Forbes writer, an Inc. columnist. He's a speaker. He's a dad. He's a husband. Actually, he's a new dad, I should say. He's a husband, and he's passionate about growing real influence for companies and for people. So, John, welcome. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah, of course. And real quick, I wanted to say hello to my lovely co-host, Suzie McCarthy, who is here with me in Las Vegas. We are both at a conference, although the two of us are actually sitting in two separate locations. But how are you doing?
I'm doing well. We just finished up a great tweet chat with the IBM Smarter Workforce team, all about HR and analytics. So I'm kind of pumped right now. So, you know, woo, Vegas.
And when Suzie is pumped,
you better watch out.
Careful.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
So guys, make sure you're tweeting your questions into the H2H Chat hashtag so that I can throw them at John in the last 30 minutes of the chat.
So Suzie, don't throw them because John's a kind of a sentimental guy. He's a good guy, but you don't want to throw it too hard at him. So I'm just saying.
Okay.
I get very emotional.
Yeah.
Very emotional.
Right. I have seen some like Nerf ball swag here in the exhibition hall, so I was kind of actually gonna throw. I'll hold off on that. So I'll save that for later. Yeah.
Good. Well, we have a lot of people on the Twitter chat right now, and like Suzie said, throw your questions out along the way. Don't wait. Because we're going to be collecting them and asking John those questions in the second half. So I'm just going down the Twitter stream here. Patricia, J.S. Gilbert, David Shue, Jessica Roberts, Lorena Hathaway, Brooke, my friend Brooke, I just met her for the first time in person, although we've known each other online 2 weeks ago. Kay Podge, Mitch Jackson, what's up? And we've got Ksenia and Robert Moore, what's up, buddy? Colin Kromke, man, Mark Horn, Bald Guy Studio. It's not a chat unless you have a bald guy on the chat.
That's Chuck Moran. He's actually my
Chuck
buddy.
Moran.
Oh yeah. Shout out to Chuck. He's awesome.
What's up, Chuck? Chuck. Chris Barrows, my friend Chris, I love you, man. Michael Nelson, Paul Bradley Smith, the man. So anyway, we've got a lot of people on here, and we welcome all of you to this. Katarina just joined in. I said you, Robert. Don't get nuts on me. I'm just kidding. Robert Moore, and
Media
Ursula Ringham just made it in. Hello, Ursula and Mitch Jackson. There he is. So anyway, welcome everybody. We are talking about how to build your personal brand like a rock star. And so I'm gonna get started with you, John. John, why don't we just first of all jump into how are you doing? What's going on in your world?
I mean, really, right now things are crazy. I just got done 7 weeks in a row of traveling and speaking, and so that's been a lot of my time recently. But fortunately, I have an amazing team that runs the company a lot of times when I'm traveling, and yeah, I mean, the main focus, kind of the background, it's my company's called Influence & Co. And so I focus a lot or more on how you actually influence decision makers, how you influence people. And it's not, even though like it's kind of like one of your questions in an email, it was talking about personal branding and how it's changed. There's been a crazy change of personal branding because it's changing from it being about perception of, okay, well, somebody looks like they have a brand to actually earning a brand. People can kind of see through a lot of the bullshit out there. And so for us, we've tried to focus on building true influence, not just like doing a perception thing where, oh, this guy as seen in Forbes one time or as seen in this. Actually, building a brand that people are listening to and you can actually influence them. And so, that kind of goes into that question, is that personal branding is changing quite a bit to being a lot more authentic and earned than kind of this fluffy BS that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, and it's interesting because when social media first came on the scene, it was like this shiny penny that everyone kind of jumped on and got excited over. But now that we're kind of coming into what I've been calling kind of the settling in period, kind of it's the same thing that we've gone through in history, right? When we had the printing press and everyone got crazy over printing everything. When we had cave paintings, when probably cavemen got excited over cave paintings. I don't know, but anyway, there's a lot of different things that we get excited over. But my point to that whole thing, I'm not just randomly talking. I'm actually have a point. I really, really do, and that is that there really is a point to all of this. We actually do want influence. So, John, what is influence?
Really, it's about it depends what your goal is. It's like if you want to influence 10 people, that is a significant amount of influence compared to if you're trying to. I'd rather have $1 instead of 100 pennies. It's kind of like the way you look at how you should target an audience. It's not about like the number. It's not everybody who says I have a million. Well, I'll give you a good example. I'm not going to say their name, but there's someone who reached out to us recently that was like, man, I've got a huge following, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers, pretty big on LinkedIn, but he's got a, it's an audience that doesn't really matter to him. It doesn't even affect his business, honestly. It's a lot of people where they're like aspiring entrepreneurs, where he's targeting CMOs and VPs of marketing now. And so, your brand it's not just about like oh, hey, are you popular? Are you well known? It's about, are you building a brand that's effective in what you're trying to accomplish? And you see a lot of people not doing that. I see one person who might have 5,000 Twitter followers of the exact right people that he needs to reach. Where we can track this stuff, and that's what's changing with branding. Is that we used to be able to say, oh, well, we think it's doing well. Now we know. And so I might have, and you're a good example of when you tweet and retweet and do something with my piece of content, typically I get engagement from it. There's people with more of a following than you that I don't get the same engagement out of it. And so I think that people need to stop shooting for the skies and feel like you need to be the Gary Vaynerchuk of the world and say, hey, I need to look at how my brand is ultimately going to help me grow my business, do better in my business, find the right position in my business, and be very set on that rather than aspiring to try and be like everyone else.
That's great. That's great. And you're right. What do you think it is? Why do you think that some people, I guess to use your example of me and some others, because I can't put my finger on it, or maybe others that that you've coached, do you have an example of why does influence from some people get shared and others don't, and they have larger amounts? Why is that?
Well, I mean, it's to your thing. I know I'm going to say human can a lot this session here, but
so what happens when you do human to human? When you do that on here, you get this.
Yes.
So that's your first human, and if you beat 9 humans saying human, then you will have beat a panel of 3 people this last time, which beat Joel Comm, which beat Jay Bear, which beat who was the other one? Susie, Chris Hewer, and so you have to beat 9 humans.
And Amber.
Strategically placed.
As well.
Yes.
Well, it's
so anyway,
it's very easy for me because one of the big things on branding, and especially personal branding and thought leadership, and it's not just like personal is kind of sounding so about you. When in reality it's I use the term thought leadership or building influence because now it's being used in companies need to develop an authentic relationship with their audience. They have to do that. You're sitting there with IBM. They have to do that with small business owners. They have to do it. That's why they're spending a lot of money on it, because they want to do it. We work with, or we've, whether it's like American Airlines, there's a ton of brands out there that are completely just investing in this. And the way they're doing is that there's a vehicle here in these individuals. Like, so they're using their key employees and their personal brands to have this human-to-human connection with, where's my applause or whatever, but human-to-human connection.
Sorry.
No worries, man.
You hit it. I didn't think you'd hit it so soon. Here we go.
But I'm just playing. But the human-to-human connection of having those key employees relate to the customers. And so that's why it's becoming so big on personal branding, because it's not just about you anymore. It's about the company you're working with. It's about your business goals. You're right now a vehicle to do so much. And like for me, like, and people like you, we bring in a lot of business to the company through our brands. It's naturally funneled through us, and then it creates opportunity for the business. But we also have people like, I don't just have me, my co-founder, we invest in their personal brand, or her personal brand. Ryan, our VP of sales, or one of our VPs, Alyssa, Brittany. We just talked about our head of recruiting investing in her personal brand, Diamond. They're all amazing employees, and you've got to invest in them to truly get the full benefit of having an authentic human connection with your audience, because you can't do that just through the brand. People are sick of talking to brands all the time because they can't relate. You can't have that connection. And so that's why it's just so important that you're doing it. And like the companies are starting to pick up. We're investing significant amounts. And a lot of times the worry is, hey, we're going to invest a ton in these people, and they're going to take off, and they're going to do something better. And I always go back to, Richard Branson's, he talks about, you invest, you train people, and you keep them by treating them well. So if you don't want to treat people well, then yeah, don't invest in their personal brands, because you're going to lose them. But I think that more companies are starting to get this, and that's why it's starting to become such an important focus for not just people who are consultants and doing their own thing, but people who are basically adding value in their own equity within a company, and companies are starting to get that. So it's important to do it the right way.
So what is a personal brand?
What is a personal brand?
Let's define that. What is a personal brand?
All right. The way I look at that is it's basically the way that people are looking at you when interacting with you, and the kind of credibility behind the person that they're dealing with. And so it can be the initial perception of when they're looking into you. It can be throughout their journey. Like I call it almost like it's like a personal branding journey when they're looking at looking into you. For example, when I first met you, I think we initially met through Twitter's, I forgot exactly, but then I remember searching you. I remember like looking at LinkedIn. I remember reading a couple of your articles. I probably should have told you this because this is sounding super stalkish, but that's what people do, and they just don't want to say it. And it's funny how, the reason why is because it's available now. Like, people can get information about who they're dealing with so easy in so many different facets. So when I look at your personal brand, I look at not just that's the initial part of it. It's also how you interact with people. So like it's your reputation as as someone in business. It's if people like you, are you relatable? You mentioned Jay Bear. I mean, I like Jay. Jay's a great guy. Have a good relationship with him, and one of the reasons why I think he's done so well with his personal brand is because he's likable. He'll stay after a conference. This is what I'd recommend to anybody. Is that, and I actually got this from Jay, is that he said stay after a conference, have drinks with everyone, make sure that they feel that you're relatable, because and that's one of the reasons why I think that Jay's got a pretty decent brand, is because people like him. He gets out there, stays on top of people's minds, and so when people deal with someone's personal brand and there's no credibility barriers as they look into you, and there's this natural, once again, human connection. They can relate. That's why you have to be authentic in that, because if you're showing someone that you think people are going to see, I'm gonna get this. I'm taking this as a complete challenge. But but when people are wanting to interact with you, if they can not just have, like, if they don't have any barriers on that kind of path, and then they like you, and then you stay on top of their mind, that's where you're going to benefit. You're going to create opportunity for yourself, because when people are in that buying decision, or if they have a friend in the buying decision, they're going to say, man, I got to think of Bryan Kramer, and they're going to be like, why? Or why would I go with him? It's like, really knows his stuff, awesome guy. Let me just shoot the intro. And that's what people do, and that's ultimately, whether it's the initial reaction or them dealing with you, it's all this huge kind of a lot of all these things that play together that ultimately form someone's brand.
So, how do you think that personal brands can be taken too far? Because I don't know about you, but I've seen, and I try really hard myself not to over promote myself, not to put others before myself, and to build others and help their brands. I know, John, actually, you probably live that more than anyone I know. You're such a promoter and a helper of everyone else, and that's probably, if I had to put something around your personal brand, it's that you help everyone before you help yourself, which is probably a good thing. It's like the whole oxygen mask thing on airplanes. You put the oxygen mask on your kids before you put it on others. That's how I would describe you, and I think that's such a wonderful trait. But what do you think? What do you think? So personal brands don't go overboard. How do you build a brand so that it's especially as individuals, because it's such a different entity than a corporation, right?
Yeah, that's really, first off, thanks for saying that. It's very kind of you. And that's not something that I used to do. I was not like that probably, I would say 5 to 10 years ago. I was kind of like, I don't know, I was a little punk kid, honestly, at certain times. And I had this mindset of, like, I don't know if it's ego or I definitely would take it too far, because I wanted to, like, puff up my chest and be like, hey, look at me. And in reality, that doesn't help you. It never really got me anywhere doing that. And so, like, what I've learned the hard way, and I've had great mentors that I've seen do this. But when you truly care about others, exactly kind of before yourself, like that, my mentality for that is that, like, I do that because I feel like that's the best way to create trust. If you help people out and educate them, that's why I believe in content marketing so much, because that's a way, education through content is a good way of helping others out. But for people like you, that you're, a lot of times it's just simple as, like, I ask you what's valuable to you, like, a speaking engagement or something like this, a press opportunity. Like, I want to know what's valuable to you, because I also want to know, like, how I can help you out. And what I've found is that a lot of times for my brand is, I can look at one side of it and say, oh, you're a conference organizer looking for a speaker. Great, I'm happy to help you. Then I go to the other side of Bryan Kramer, and I'm like, Bryan, you're a great speaker. You like to speak, and you look for opportunities like that. And I just connect the dots, and it helps me develop a relationship with you, and it helps me develop a relationship with them. And then once you get past those trust barriers, you can do some really great things like we're doing now. I mean, you can find ways to help each other out. So that's my mindset on kind of that point. The other point, like, you talked about going too far, is that it's kind of exactly how I used to be, honestly, like puffing out the chest and saying, oh, hey, I'll just give you an example. Something drives me nuts on LinkedIn is when somebody is like, I have 10,000 this, I have 20,000 this, I have this, and it's in their, like, damn topic. I'm like, what the F do you do? Like, I looked at your headline, I still don't even know what the hell you do, and you're talking about how awesome you are, and I have no idea what you're doing. Yeah. And so, like, I would say that, think about, once again, it's like, go off your human-to-human connection, that's 5. Go off that. Do you think you're going to have a connection with someone when you're just bragging to them? Like, how often do you feel that way? Like, sometimes I feel weird at just giving my bio to people because it feels like I'm bragging. And so what I would say is that be very natural, and don't just be like, hey, like, this is, I want to sound as cool as I can. Play it down a little, because some of the best brands are somewhat humble, somewhat caring, somewhat thoughtful, authentic. It depends. Like, I like to, we have a no asshole policy, so I like to work with people who aren't assholes. So if I want to have the human to connection with people, what I want to do is I want them to look at me and say, hey, I want to deal with him, and I want to deal with his team. So, like Maya, who's sitting next to me, typing away. Maya's an awesome person, and her brand is very nice, helpful to other employees. There's a variety of people across my company. I mean, really everybody. There's not one person I don't like. They're actually really good people, and it tends to attract really good clients, really good relationships. And so, if you're like targeting, I don't know, a bunch of assholes, then yeah, an asshole brand would totally work because people can relate to that.
I'm just going to throw an extra one of these in here. You're winning an extra point.
No, but like that's where when you look at that is that like I don't want to deal with those type of people. Like I just dealt with someone who stood me up 3 times in a row, was late for the call, didn't apologize, and I just honestly told them we can't do business. It was a huge company to do business with, and I just told them no, I will not do that. There was another one where I was at a conference, and this person was treating their wife. They had a little too much to drink. They were treating their wife poorly, and I'm all about like I love my wife, so I don't want to treat her poorly. She's pretty great, and so I stood up for the wife, even though it probably wasn't my business. But I just said, hey, like honestly, I know you're trying to be entertaining here, but I'm not entertained by that. I think it's kind of shitty. And you shouldn't do that stuff. And he was pissed at me at the time. But he called me up a couple days later and said, hey, I just wanted you to know that like I really respected it. I had too much to drink, and like you showing me kind of what you were about like makes me like I want to deal with you. And we actually worked with him for over 2 years. He just had a bad night, and but at the same time is that like brand, stick to your ideals, your morals, your values, be who you want to be, because people are starting to see through bullshit more these days, and if you're not doing that, you're going to get the wrong clients, you're going to deal with the wrong people, and ultimately you're not going to help yourself out at all. And so that's some advice I would give is don't go too far because you might attract the wrong people.
Wow. That was awesome. So when you look at somebody's when they come to you, a person comes to you and says, "I want to build my brand." They're potentially they are working somewhere, and they're in an executive or mid manager area. What's kind of the first thing you say to them?
When they're wanting to build their, I mean, it just depends. I mean, the first thing is, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish with this? Just because that can change how you're doing things. Like, are you in a position where you're the rainmaker, and so you need to have business running through you? Or are you in a position where people want to work with you? And like, I'll give you a good example is that initially, my co-founder, she does a lot of the operation stuff and running the company there, and I'm doing a lot of the external stuff. We have different personal branding goals. Like, she might, like, I mean, it's kind of changed recently, but, she should be writing about culture. She should be writing about stuff about operating the business, because I want people to want to work with her and be like, gosh, and she is amazing. And so it's like, I want to see that, or I want to kind of show that in a natural way, and so people want to do that, and we get the best talent. For me, we're targeting people that are completely different. We're targeting the people who are reading the Forbes, the HBRs, the Incs, the out there, and they're wanting to be educated on in this area. And so like that's initially what we started out with, and so now it's changed. Like Kelsey's doing more external stuff as well, but yeah, I mean, it just depends on your goals. So my first question is what you're trying to accomplish. And here's the funny part. If they say, I want to get in Wall Street Journal or be on the cover of Wall Street Journal or Forbes, I'm like, that's a terrible, terrible goal. That's ridiculous. That is, like, it's not a goal. Like, that's not like a goal is I want more sales, or I want brand awareness so that we can, be positioned as a leader in this space by doing this, this, and this. Like, that's an actual, like, real goal. And when people say that, I'm like, okay, so ego's involved. Sweet. Now that I understand that, we can understand that, and we can also play to that, because that is a benefit. Like, if you can see yourself there, you get confidence. Not my number one goal, but I would say that I want to dig down first into really what you're trying to accomplish, because of the fact that, like, if we don't do that, then why would you go to us in the first place or do anything? So that's the first step. Then it's like also, documenting it, getting it down. The first thing we do with a client is create a blueprint where we look at what competitors are doing, what are potential topic ideas, what are the main goals, what outlets, where are the places where this audience is located. You got to get that down and actually create that blueprint so you have something to go off of, because if you're spread out and doing, like, here's what the initial thing to do is that I need to be on LinkedIn, Twitter, this, I need to do content here, it needs to go all over the place, because a lot of leaders are kind of like that, and the important part is to say, hey, what do we start out with? Let's do this and get a good base here, then let's go from there, and you can always add to that blueprint and add some, more detailed and things all over the place. But getting that structure initially, I mean, as simple as it is, I think it's like there was a Content Marketing Institute stat that was 35% of people document their content strategy. And that's for company-wide. So it's less when it's personal branding. And so when you look at that, like, you're not even doing the simple steps, and that's the problem, is that people just run in, they start doing everything, spread out through it, and doing stuff sporadically, and they end up not accomplishing anything, when you can just be very, very focused at the beginning and start step by step and truly build that brand. That'd be the simple initial kind of step.
That's great. That's great. With just a couple minutes left here, I wanted to get a little bit tactical in the final question, and just give some tips, some things that are very simple, things that people just kind of step over, and they don't take the time to do maybe some of the simple things that you need to do to help build your brand. That obviously when you want to take it to the next level, you hire a company like yours, and you can do that. But how can a person just simply get started in is it as simple as going around and looking at your bios and fixing that, and like what would you say, you just gotta kind of, what are the fundamentals?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like, it's go back to, it's like kind of what I said about the buyer's journey or the customer journey when they're interacting with you. Talk to people. So, like, Bryan is someone who's a potential partner, a great guy. I would ask him and say, so if you were looking into me, what would you look at? Like, what do you pay attention to? What are you reading? Like, try and truly understand and listen and give feedback on where your audience is in different ways, the people that you truly want to reach and create relationships with. So that's a very, very good start, because then it will give you, like, if nobody ever is checking out my Facebook account or something like that, or or something like that, then that's not going to be the first place I hit. So let's start with that. And so, I mean, you can use programs like brandyourself.com or things to, like, go on your social profiles, and that kind of runs you through the checklists on the major ones. So look at Brand Yourself as kind of a simple software for that. And then around that, you can say, okay, well, once you kind of get those in line, so it shouldn't take you forever to, get your social profiles. Like, shit, I mean, you should be able to do it in a couple hours. Obviously get it edited and make it look good, but then it's thinking about, like, how do you start getting content in front of this audience? So start very simple. So, like, for me, like, I started out doing about 1 to 2 articles a month. Where occasionally, like, we would get it published in, not just, like, I wasn't in Forbes yet, I wasn't in Inc. Like, 4 years ago when I was starting out, I was literally unknown to, in most places, only, like, I mean, really in my hometown, and so I had to build that at the beginning. And so start simple, saying, hey, like, here's some niche sites that, I can get in and kind of get some content, and then share it on, a Twitter or a LinkedIn. I had a guy, actually, this is a funny success story. This guy's name is Dustin. He reached out to me through LinkedIn, and just through the LinkedIn platform, but from contributing articles, like, we helped and we worked together with LinkedIn. They got a brilliant content team who kind of developed that contributor platform. If you guys haven't seen it yet. But Dustin has just used that platform and generated about an article or article 2 a week. He has 17,000 followers that are very engaged. He's actually getting some consulting jobs now. He's kind of created some opportunity for himself, where we were actually even looking into him to potentially hire him because he had done that. And so when you look at that, I mean, he did something very simple. Is that he just said, guys, I'm going to get on LinkedIn. I'm going to make my profile look really solid. This is the audience that I'm trying to reach here. I'm going to generate an article or 2 a week, or it was like a month. I don't know exactly his frequency, but he did it, and he was getting 300 views here, 500 views here, 600 views here, and then all of a sudden it's 200,000 views here, and it's 100,000. And so my simple advice is that, go out there and just really just create a very simple blueprint of here's where my audience is, here's where I want to start out, here's my goal, and don't say I'm going to start off by getting a weekly, writing weekly articles. Start simple and say I want 1 or 2 articles. I want to get these profiles up and running. Start with that. Once you do very well on that, then you can add stuff to your plate. But the whole idea behind personal branding, content marketing, thought leadership is staying on top of people's minds and, once again, having that human-to-human connection. I think I'm still a couple short, but getting that connection with them so that when they end up being in that decision or in that decision-making process, they pull that trigger. So get the simple stuff down and that basic stuff down first, then go to that next step. And so if you have any questions after that, like I know that's a fairly general, just email me or you can tweet. I'll respond to everybody who sends me a message. Like that's part of thought leadership and personal branding is being there for you. And so yeah, feel free to shoot me a situational question. I'm happy to answer that as well.
Well, I can keep asking you questions because this is fascinating stuff, but I want to make sure that we leave time for everyone in the tweet chats too, and you've got questions pouring in, so we're not going to have a problem here. But we want to keep receiving questions because even if we can't ask them, John's going to stay on for I think 10 or 15 minutes, or whether he can do it right after or perhaps sometime later today. You can get on Twitter and just answer them. But either way, please tweet us H2H Chat questions for John on personal branding. And with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Suzie, where she's going to take you through the questions from the great Twitters of the universe. Go for it.
All right. Thanks, Bryan.
Yeah,
yes. Cheers. All right. First of all, you got to tell me, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
My connection's wonky. We're good. Okay.
I can hear you.
All right. Keep me posted, guys. All right. First of all, I have to say, John, this has been seriously amazing. I'm just like drinking all of this up. Personal branding is definitely something that I'm very mindful of, and kind of as a young social strategist in the field, it's definitely something I'm very cognizant of, and it's one of those big questions, right, that everyone has, and there's different ways to go about it, and it's just so important, and our audience is just going crazy about it right now. So first of all, guys, to our audience, I have some great questions coming in, but go ahead. Please keep them coming. I'm continuing to check the Twitter stream. So let's get started. I have a great question to, I think, get us started from Brandon Stetton-Benz, one of our H2H Chat regulars, always has great questions. He said, would love to hear some real-life cases where companies invest in employees by allowing and encouraging personal branding.
I mean, that's a lot of times what companies are hiring us. I mean, just a lot of our customers or a lot of our clients. Like I'm trying to think of a good one where a good example. I mean, GES is a good example. They're a client that I like. They do event marketing and a great company. I remember initially talking to Gina, their head of marketing, and it was really interesting how they came out and they said, hey, like, we know that we have to have an authentic relationship with people. They're looking at us in this very old school, we've been around for so long, company. And this is not just them. I mean, it's companies that we work with like Dell. AIG was another good example of when we were talking to them, is that they just said that, like, people, once again, we want to have this authentic relationship with them. And so to do that, you have to do it through people. It's very, very hard for brands to truly have a strong, authentic bond. I mean, that's Bryan's that's what he's made money off his human book. Honestly, it's crazy how much that plays a part in it. And so for what you're doing there, like companies, like the people who aren't doing it are being laggards. They're being the people that are like, well, what if you lose employees? What if you do this? Well, no shit, you're gonna lose employees, honestly. Like it's gonna happen. But do you want to be the company that isn't having that connection with people? We invest in it. We're a good example of, I mean, like, we're probably one of the best case studies that we invest across the company in quite a few of the brands, and we benefit from it. There's more opportunity that comes to our company through doing that. Yes, we're going to lose a employee here and there, but overall, we get more leads from it. we find ourselves getting less sales barriers. So with publications, we build the brands. Like a lot of times it's me who's building it, or it could be one of our publication strategists. But the more you kind of decrease sales barriers across your company, the more opportunity goes to you. So, like I said, GS is an example that I really liked. I mean, I thought Dell was really thoughtful in their approach to some things they do. I mean, really, a lot of the people, IBM, like a lot of your sponsors actually look at this stuff. I mean, this is why they're sponsoring tweet chats and trying to have, a good relationship with Bryan and the people who listen to him. And so it's very interesting to see how it's a natural trend for a ton of companies. I mean, really, like if I look at like HubSpot, for example, they did it beautifully. I mean, HubSpot has done that. I mean, they believe in inbound marketing, obviously, because that's what they're selling. But when you look at what they did with Bryan, Darmesh, Joe Chernoff, across the company, I mean, Mike Volpe, they invested in all of their brands, and it's always creating opportunity for them, whether it's through speaking opportunities. Like they're basically controlling the voice in their industry a lot of times. And so,
And good news, John. Joe is one of the H2H Chat people coming up, so we'll make sure to give him a shout out from you here on the H2H Chat. He's probably excited to hear that you're talking about that. When I know HubSpot is such a phenomenal content machine, but people are looking at places like HubSpot and saying, how the heck can I do that? I don't even have the bandwidth. I don't have the resources to do something like that. How do they do that?
It's not just HubSpot. There's a lot of people that are doing, I mean, but they're not big companies, honestly. Like, I don't really have any big companies. Like, we're starting to work with some that are doing a lot better, which I'm loving to see, because I love it when big companies are starting to do stuff, because a lot of times they're the laggards because they have so much damn red tape. Like Buffer is another example. Buffer was a small company that initially invested in getting content from them, and I think it was, I read an article, it was like 70% of their business was coming from this type of content. And so so there's other companies that are doing it that aren't just a HubSpot. Grasshopper was good at content. Contently is in the same area as we do. They do great content. I like our content, but I'm very biased. And what I would say is that when you look at it, just start off small. Like, don't try and be HubSpot. That's like me saying, like, when I was a kid, I want to be Michael Jordan. Like, I'm not going to be Michael Jordan. Well, for a lot of reasons. I mean, that's kind of a rough example because I just don't have the skill. But you don't initially look and say, I need to be that. What you need to look at your situation and say, what can I learn from them and apply it? So what are my current resources? So I have this many people. Like, here's what I truly feel we can do. If you can do it and you can do it well, then do it internally. One of the reasons why we're in business is because a lot of people can't do it internally, and they say, we get this, but we do know that we need to invest in it, and so we need to go to this company to help us. And so, you have to look at it and be honest with yourself. Start out small, and don't put so much pressure on yourself to, we have to take over the world. And so, initially when you look at that, make an investment, say, here's what we're going to do, but set it up for success in the long run. And also, if you do want to go all out at the beginning, which a lot of companies need to right now, or they're going to be late and other competitors are going to catch up or are going to get in front of them. And it's the same thing with Twitter and social. Like, you got early in Twitter along with, a lot of other kind of influencers, and you build these really good followings, where nowadays, even if somebody was as cool as you started on Twitter right now, they're going to have like a couple thousand followers unless they just get lucky. You were a smart innovator that got into it beforehand, and that's the same thing with content marketing, is that we're still in that phase where there's still watering holes left. So people are still needing these resources. So if you are going to invest in it, be honest with yourself and say, okay, we're going to put the resources towards it, set it up for success. But what I would say is that, look at it, be honest with yourself, ask people like me. There's a lot of people who will help, and this is such a general answer, but without knowing someone's situation, how many resources, how many people, how much money they have to invest, I could give you an example off like a $3K budget a month, but if one of your audience members only has $500, then I need to take a step back and say, okay, well, this is probably what you can do for $500. And so that's a very important situational question that needs to be answered. But what I would say is just get a plan in place, be honest with yourself, put this money aside to invest in it, and then just stick to it. Don't do it for a couple months. At least do it for a year to see kind of, like for me, a lot of things didn't pick up until month 6 or 7 or 8. And then now it's kind of like this natural machine that brings in a lot of opportunity, or at least helps me, you know, as I'm kind of creating opportunity for the company.
That's great. That's such a great answer. Thank you. I think actually I have to say you kind of, with that response, you kind of touched on some of the other questions, bits and pieces of the other questions that were coming in. But I have a question just to follow up on that. How do you measure the ROI of employee personal branding?
I mean, so you once again, you've got to look at the goals. What were you trying to accomplish? So, like for example, for us, we measure it on a lot of different things. So if it's our content through our marketing, because we use content for marketing, recruiting, like all over the place, obviously. And like so, Maya, who's sitting next to me, that I'll call like her team on the inbound team, they're measuring like leads coming in, not just leads, but quality leads, measuring that, seeing, you know, how many conversions come from that. Those are like the trackable ones where you've got to look at and you've got to say, okay, so what are our goals? Well, like don't expect when you're doing content these days that 1 million people are going to see your stuff. We're past those days. Things have changed where you get on the, you know, in Forbes or in a Mashable or whatever, and your world completely changes the next day. I think they used to call like tech crunches, you get crunched or whatever, and that doesn't happen. There's just too many too many channels to tap into now, and so you've got to look and you've got to say, okay, well, over time, this is what we're, you know, expected. This is what we're tracking, and so we look at it like we use HubSpot, and we look at it and we look at leads, conversions. We also look and see how people interacted with us. So it's about like if somebody meets me at a conference and starts paying attention to our content, what we've learned is that typically people, and actually HSBC had a study done where they tested out people who interact with their content that are come from their key employees compared to people who just come in through normal sales channels, and it was like something like 50%. They spent 50% more, and we've seen the same type of numbers by saying like people interact with our content in this way, actually spend more money, they're more qualified. And so we know there's a lot of other benefits there too, and so you've got to look at it from you know, the big picture and say, okay, well, brand awareness is important here, and we know we're getting it, but we got to look at all the things we can measure. And what I tell people is that get to the point where you can measure and justify the ROI that's trackable. And trust me, the brand awareness will be there. You'll get that you can't measure it, but that's what I would say. So. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. We've had a few people on H2H Chat. We had Bryan Moran, who his entire end thing, every single thing you do needs to fit in with a strategy, and that's so great, especially for small businesses where, you know, you have a very small margin, you know, and they need to invest in that, but it can be incredibly daunting. So this is a question that came up. And I think this is a really important question. This is from Janet Fouts, and then I'm going to add a little bit to it as well. She says, should a Rainmaker's brand be for themselves or as a representative of the company? And I want to add kind of a addition to that, which is, I think, part of the thing here is, are we talking about employee advocacy or are we talking about strengthening personal branding when a brand is doing this?
It depends what the strategy is. So if you are, let's say, I'm going to be a person that I want to be on my own. I don't want to have any employees. Well, then what matters is your brand and you being the Rainmaker for yourself. However, like for me, like that doesn't make sense for me because we're growing a company and I need to be a vehicle for my company. And that's the best way that I'm going to add value. Because if I, like, let's just say I was just only concerned about myself and not trying to, one, you look shitty among your team members. So you look when, you know, I go to, you know, our board and we're talking about this and they're like, hey, John, you're on this, like, tangent of John Hall, what are you doing for the company? That's a problem. You're not a good team member if you're like that, and you're not helping to grow the company. And so you want to create opportunity for yourself, but you also want to remember the reason why you're doing it is to, you know, help the company. And that's why, you know, it's important for companies to choose the right people. It's got to be people that truly care about the growth of the company, that truly, you know, value the ideals. And I would pick somebody like that over somebody who's smarter, honestly. Like, there's some smart, complete assholes, and they're just, like, ridiculous. And I'm like, man, you're not going to have that, once again, human-to-human connection. Oh, gosh, I'm like one short. you're not going to have. I mean, I'm basically like I would have said authenticity, but I'm just substituting the word for authenticity. But it's really you're not going to be able to relate to those people, and so companies need to choose the right people, and you need to be focused on like, hey, like for example, this opportunity, I'm doing it because you guys have a similar audience that we do. So hopefully we can reach people that are in your audience, and you can reach people in our audience as we share, and and they look at that as, hey, hopefully this helps both of our companies. At the same time, it helps Bryan and my brand and your brand and Maya's, because I keep on relating to her. At least wave in here, just give a little. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Love the shout out. Have to say, love the love that you're showing. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So it sounds, I like the idea that this is all tied to a strategy. So I like the idea that you're thinking through and you're deciding which employees that you're gonna invest in. How much? Where does that start though, right? I mean, I imagine even if they're very much into the company message, getting the culture, all of that, there has to be some education, right? How do you get started with that?
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, that's one of the biggest barriers that you deal with personal branding, especially, is getting executives behind it, because executives, exactly here, personal branding, this is about you. It's very selfish, that's where you have to educate them. Personal branding is not personal branding anymore. Personal branding is like thought leadership. It's a lot of different other things in here, and so you got to go in there and you have to say, hey guys, this is how it's going to benefit the company, and this is why we're looking at an investment, and spread it across. Like, very rarely should you put only one person in a company. Most of the time you can start out with that, but the plan should be you get several across the board, and they're all targeting different personas. And so, like, for example, that GS, to go back to that case study, I'm not on that account, but Don, who is, he looks at it and says, okay, you're at going after this persona, you're going after this persona, you're going after this persona, and you guys are the experts that can really relate and have that connection. I'm just going to say H connection because I feel weird to keep on saying it now, but having it ends up... That's how you have that like company benefit, because then you have all across the board. You're talking to all of your personas, and you're having that connection with them. And so, look at it, and I think first off is going in there and saying, hey guys, this is the overall business goals that we're trying to accomplish. Here are the vehicles that we're using, similar to how we use a pay-per-click ad. To that, we're using these people because we want to have an authentic connection with them. And then here's how we're going to track it. Here's what we're going to look at. Here are the benefits to it. And then also, where you might help with education is helping them understand on how it helps other people in the company. So I just gave a speech at a keynote at Content Management Strategies, which was which I was telling people, one of the big questions was, how can I be a resource for other people within the company, from what you're saying? And I said, I talked about doing the blueprints, talked about getting those beginning steps, but then I also said, well, like, go up to your head of recruiting and say, hey, guys, we're going to be developing this content. It's going to be coming from these key employees. Here's how I think we can help you out, because they're going to be developing content that a lot of our potential recruits should be hearing, and initial employees for training. And so when you look at that, you end up saying, oh man, like that's, so once again, this is my brand thinking about like, how can I be helpful? And what they'll find out is, if you go to your HR person and said, you're not going to have to do any work, we're going to deliver this to you as an asset that you can use, and not only are you going to have content that educates people, but you're going to have people that feel a little more connected to our leaders. And so, like, for me, like, that's helped with recruiting. Ryan, the VP I mentioned earlier, in his interview, I mean, he's a super valuable employee, and in his interview, he mentioned, yeah, I read this article that you wrote in Under 30 CEO, and it was about how I have a jar in the office, or we have a jar in the office that it's from The New Girl, if you guys watch that show, but I watched that with my wife, and I'm proud to say I've watched that with my wife. And there is a jar in there that we put money in if somebody calls you out for saying something that's kind of shitty to another employee, because we want to be open. Like, if somebody says something crappy that's a bad comment, you should be able to openly say, hey, we're gonna call you out on that one, and you'd have to put money, and then we would go to a happy hour with it, or give to charity, or whatever was a good thing to do with that money.
Yeah.
Well, he mentioned that in that interview, And so when you look at that, like, I mean, what's more valuable, a lead or a, well, you know, one or a, you know, VP that's been with us since the beginning?
Right.
That VP's been, you know, more valuable. And so I look at it in a way where, I mean, there's so many, when you talk about the education of it, if you truly understand it and how it benefits all these different parts of the company in addition to your own, and you take that to leadership and you're educating them on it or other people in your company, what ends up happening is that you have this helpful mentality where people are like, man, they're not only worried about themselves, but they're basically killing 5 birds with 1 stone and thinking about how they can help us as well. And then you deal with, like, that's the number one thing that will prevent you from doing stuff is other people in your company being a barrier. Somebody saying, well, you shouldn't be doing personal branding, you shouldn't be doing this. But if you educate them on how, you know, you guys are vehicles and spread it, you know, kind of take that helpful mentality, you'll deal with a lot of barriers, and ultimately you'll get budget approvals, you'll get people that want to help, want to spend time doing it, and so yeah, that'd be my feedback on that one.
Yeah. I think that's so important. You're talking, so here at SHRM, we actually had a great roundtable last night, moderated by our mutual friend, Bryan Rand. And something that was coming up a lot with these amazing we had a panel with these great HR influencers that we just brought in from different places. And one thing that was coming up was the real importance of company culture and really putting that out there and making sure, and transparency, being authentic, having all of that there. And it sounds like this, you know, this is a key role that kind of transitions when you're also talking about adopting personal branding. Because you're dealing so much with messaging, and it's so important. I think, you know, especially as we're in this age of social, where more and more people are, you know, interacting. Before we run out of time, I want to jump through. I want to jump to some of the questions that we have about building up your personal brand as, you know, being out on your own. One question we have from J.S. Gilbert, which I think is really interesting. He says, what percentage would you say that likability plays into the overall influencer equation? So he's going more to the influencer aspect.
You can be, so when it comes to likability, I mean, likability can also, like, I'll give you an example. One of my favorite professors in high school was kind of pretty straight to the point, I'll just say. It was he was an English professor, and he was very, very straight to the point, but I respected him a lot, and I liked him, and that respect is a powerful, like, you know, like, would I say that, like, he's my favorite person to grab a beer with? No, but at the same time, I really liked it because he is one of the most respected professors I've ever had. And so it's not just about being super nice. I would say that one of the things I try to do is give honest feedback. And so it's not just about likability where, like, hey, you're being nice and I want you to, like, really love me and be best friends. I've given people feedback that is pretty hard to say, where it's like, hey, I honestly thought you were out of line. I thought that, you know, it was kind of shitty what you did. And those hard conversations, I hope that, you know, once again, let's go back to authenticity.
Right.
I think that's what gets people to like you. And so when you're thinking about it, it's not just about being the funny guy that everybody likes. It's about being the person that you are, in combination with what's ultimately going to help others and naturally attract the right audience to you.
Yeah.
And so I like an authentic, straightforward, you know, audience, and so that's what I try to do at least. And so I think it is a huge factor, though. Like, we get a lot of referrals because once again, Bryan kind of mentioned, I like helping people out. And if you find at the end of every conversation, I'll ask, so what is the way I can be helpful for you? And I write it down. I write it down a couple times so it goes in memory, and I know exactly what's important, how I can help them out in the future. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to be the person who's helping people out and it's not even valuable. I'm like, hey, sweet man, I got you this, and they're like, what the hell is that? Like, I don't.
Why? Yeah.
And so, like, an example is like somebody, you know, sent me a bunch of coffee stuff, and I don't drink coffee, so I'm like, oh my god, the thought was so there. I get it, but now I can't do anything with this. And so, like, learn what's valuable to people.
Right.
But I think that, like, once again, it's that combination of being yourself, being authentic, with finding out what's going to, like, resonate and finding that relation to them.
Yeah.
And if you can do that and seem very natural, then people are going to not just like you, but I think the perfect blend is like and respect. So, like, I want people to like me and feel like I'm approachable, that they can have a conversation, but I want them to respect me, and I'm not going to just only tell them what they want to hear. And so it's a tough question, but at the same time, I think that what he's getting at, who's the person who asked that?
James Gilbert.
Hi, hey, how you doing? And I'll if I see on Twitter, I'll try and respond. But it's such a big factor, because if people are in that buying decision and they like you and respect you, you're the first person that comes to mind. It's the thing where if one of Bryan's competitors was like, hey, or if they were like, oh, we're looking for somebody in the social space, we're looking at this area, who would you go with? I'm going to say Bryan Kramer. You know why? Because I like Bryan, and I'm biased. And so I'll tell them that, but it is the first person that comes. But that's the case. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. It's a huge factor, but don't get too caught up in just being the lovey-dovey, I want you to like me. Earn it, you know? Right.
Yeah, because that'll come across. You get, like, the needy thing. Like, you know, that kid chasing you around the playground going, hi, you know, pay attention to me, you know. Yeah, I completely, absolutely. So I have to end with a question that is near and dear to my heart, because someone called out my hair. Thank you for the person who called out my hair. They want to know, how does image play into your personal branding, like Suzie McCarthy's hair? So this is something that occurred with me. People know this story. People started to call me the girl with the red hair when I dyed my hair red several years ago, and it just stuck. And so now you go to a conference, and as Bryan knows, you can find me no matter where I am, because I have my red hair. So you know, how important is it to kind of have something that you make your own?
That's a differentiating strategy, which is really good. It's kind of I made fun of myself recently in a couple speeches, because I think in Venn diagrams now. So I think of, okay, if you do this and you do this and then you do this, boom, that middle is where you want to be. And so what you're doing there is, like, it's a differentiating strategy. It's in content marketing, Joe Pelusi called it content tilt, but it's something. But I call it a differentiating factor. You're doing something that makes you memorable or different. Rand Fishkin did this with Whiteboard Fridays in a way to communicate. Some people do it with their own image to you know, differentiate themselves. Now you're naturally more memorable to me because of your hair. However, you have to have those other two things where, like, if you got on and, like, in my dealing with you, I felt that you just didn't know your stuff, and, like, you know, whatever, that completely, then I started being like, yeah, that, like, then it hurts you.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is that,
stay away from the red hair. Watch out.
Yeah, and so what I would say is, once again, is that you're trying to accomplish a goal, and if you feel like that's going to hurt, if you feel like dealing with your audience that you're trying to target, it's you having a pink hair, or it looks pink to me, it looks great, I love it.
Yeah, it's gotten pinkish as we've gone, gotten a little crazier as the years have gone on.
It's fine. Mine doesn't look good pink. It just I tried it, and
I feel like you could kind of rock the purple.
I could probably. And then I have these, like, natural bald lines coming in, so then I'm just purple-haired, you know, whatever. But I would say that the short answer for that is it's a very good thing a lot of times if you can, because if you have the personality, like, I don't honestly. The way I communicate and the way my personality is, if I had purple hair, people would be like, "That's weird, dude." You have a very it's a fun personality. You're a lot more fun than I am. I can already tell in just this conversation, and so you can pull that off. So my thing is that if you can pull something off and it's not going to hurt you with an audience, then do it. Be yourself. It'll make you feel more comfortable. It can make you more relatable. But honestly, if I thought that you were dealing, like, you were going down to Wall Street and meeting with people and with pink hair, like, I think it would hurt. Like, I think if you walked into,
it's like the nose ring, right, or the lip ring.
Yeah.
No, actually, okay. The worst is the tongue ring, because you're like, dude, that's just not. No, I totally. And I think that's the important thing, right? Is you think about who you are, you know, the entire person, and, you know, ultimately, I love what you're saying, because I completely believe it. It comes down to that authenticity, that transparency, and I get to say it this time, Bryan, being human.
Being human, yeah. And
it's true, right? It's our humanity.
There you go. I don't know how many I had, but what I will end on, I know we got like a minute left, but
yeah.
A good takeaway that I've just started trying to tell people is that what I call it content triggers. And you've got to start training yourself to do this. And this is how, like, I a lot of times create content, do different things with distributing content. Is that anytime somebody interacts with you and they have a natural, like, relation point, whether it's something personal or they liked something about the way you do business, or something that you said that educated them and said, wow, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that, whatever, Buffer did this. I didn't know that these examples. Write that down. Have a notepad next to you. Write it down. That should be a content trigger, which develops a process that, like for me, I can go to Maya and say, Maya, I should get an article about this out there because this really resonated with this type of person who I'm really trying to reach and connect with. Start doing that. That's a very, very good exercise to start doing, because what it does, it not only helps you get better content in articles in your social channels, but it also helps you think about, how am I resonating with people? What is truly educating people? What is information is valuable? And so start doing that. Have a notepad, and what you'll realize is that it not only makes you kind of more thoughtful in how you're addressing and educating people, but you'll also be able to generate higher quality content that truly gets that authentic connection with people.
I love that.
Hey, dude, we got to close this out. Unfortunately, I just wanted to thank you, but real quick, where can everyone find you, John?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. For me, it is, I mean, like, I even let my email, like, I'm not too cool enough where I say people can't email me. Like, email me, it might be a little bit, but I'll try and get back to you. So that's john@influenceandco.com if you have a direct situational question. So I'm not hiding. And then, whether it be, I mean, I write for Forbes, I write for Inc. I do stuff for Content Marketing Institute, HBR. So if you want to kind of look at that stuff, that's where you can get more information. Twitter is Tweet John Hall, but really just reach out. Like my company, whether it be through a contact form, whether it be through an email, we try to be like thought leaders and people who truly help others around our area. And so we're going to respond to you, and we're going to try and help you out. And so, don't hesitate to reach out.
And I can honestly attest to that. You are at 8 humans. The goal is 9. I just wanted to bring that up, just in case. And so I wanted to see if you had any last final words.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, what I would say, like, is I'm happy to be here. Like, one of the reasons why I did this is because the human-to-human connection, it honestly resonated with me. That's 9. It resonated with me, and I actually truly believe it. For your listeners out there, like when Bryan said about helping others, like that's creating a human-to-human connection. When I'm talking about content marketing, that's talking about a human-to-human connection. And the way trends, when people are talking about future trends, that's where we're going. LinkedIn opening up their contributor platform, allowing people to contribute, was a huge thing, where it allowed people to have individual content and be a voice for their company without having their company having to control everything, because that's their own social profile. And so there's these, it's not just a trend, but there's where you need to do it, but there's also companies, platforms that are making it easier for you to do it. So yeah, I mean, like the reason why I agreed to do this is because I like Bryan, but also I truly believe in this human-to-human mentality, and also using it in your content marketing. So I hope that helps out, and I hope you guys weren't annoyed by it, but I definitely want to bet with Bryan.
And now everybody can tweet at Amber,
Joel,
and
Chris,
Chris, and who else?
Jay
Bear.
Bear.
That at tweet John Hall just broke the record, and that's why you heard that sound.
That's why you guys were annoyed with me just keep saying that. But yeah, I mean, give shout-outs to all of them. All those people are great. Bryan Moran, I know we mentioned him. He's a good buddy and a great person to follow as well.
All right, so unfortunately we got to close this out, but really fast, I want to thank our sponsors, our partners, because if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be here having this great content. And so once again, thank you, John. I really appreciate it. But also to our partners, Newstar, MasterCard, Cisco, IBM, Little Bird, Hootsuite, Freshdesk, Speakeasy, Influitive, Mutual Mind, and Cox Communications. Thank you guys for supporting my new book, Shareology. This is a special series on H2H Chat, the Shareology series, and how we're sharing. You can get the book on Amazon now. You can order it there, or at shareologybook.com. Once again, you have been sharing in a great way, John. I really appreciate it. And to everyone else out there, let's laugh it up and have a great day. I will see you all soon. See you next Monday. Cheers.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care, guys. Bye.
Yeah.